Why do we count the number of dead as the relevance of a terrorist attack? The impact of the event should not be measured by the casualties, but by the possibilities it opens to other casualties, by the copycats, by the inspiration it produces, by the consequences of the act. Only 3,000 dead, I hear people say, is nothing compared to the victims of AIDS or starvation in Africa or the earthquakes in Mexico or the tsunami in Japan. I don't count the casualties. I count the impact of the event on the collective psyche, its relevance, accustomed as we are to what is expected. War is expected and casualties are expected. That is why the impact of the event cannot be measured by casualties, because that is what is expected. And impact is not measured by the expected, but what has no name or tradition. It is based on the new. Success can be measured by numbers, and not just by the number of dead and wounded, but by the number of spectators around the world who witnessed the fall of the American empire on TV. It changed the world's view of the self proclaimed superpower. It made the superpower appear powerless. When success and impact come together, that event marks an era. There is a before and an after.
Yeah, a hell of an after, as we came to find out.
Yeah.
Well,
Wait.
can we just acknowledge that this sounds like it happened yesterday?
Yeah.
This was. I mean, this is. Hi everyone. This is. This is. Like a very much a post 9/11 book. Like, still, this is like what, 2011 that it comes out.
Yeah. But being
And
written
it's
soon after.
yeah. And it feels very like there are parts of it that feel very 9/11, but all that does for me, to a certain extent, it sort of really connects in this weird this horrible loop where we're sort of at the same point again, except this time it's worse.
What you need or what does need? Power of the union and the socialist dream. Everything I can need, oh I need, oh I need, oh I need, all the what does need. Oh what does need? Oh what does need? Oh what does need?
Welcome back to Workers Lit. We've got a weird one today, folks. We've got United States of Banana. You might ask, that's not that weird. That's just the country I live in. If you're one of our most of our listeners.
That's actually what USB stands for.
Yes, it is. USB drives. You were probably using it in your daily life. You'll notice it's just me and Lenore on the pod today with Karlo because, unfortunately, Aisha is stuck underneath the Statue of Liberty. We are trying to get her out as rapidly as possible, but she has become the leader of a gang of miscreants, outsiders, ne'er-do-wells, and conspiracy theorists who are sort of forming their own parallel society underneath the Statue of Liberty's skirts. So prayers that we can get her out for next week, but no promises. Well, we have a return guest, but it has been a while. Please welcome back to the show, Karlo Yeager Rodríguez. Karlo, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, considering everything. Yes.
Considering everything. You do a number of cool things. You're writing, you podcast. Let's just at the top, tell people what you're up to.
My most recent thing is like a very what I've called tropey weird, which is sort of just like my jokey sort of challenge, because you know how most weird fiction happens in like these temperate climates. It's misty, it's damp, it's cold. It's like, no, let's do it when it's like there's jungle and it's warm. And the shadows on the beach, they can sometimes be pretty dark. So let's do that. And so one of those is like is probably my weirdest one to date in that sense, is that a story called Blanquitos at Type Bar magazine, which, just hopefully by the time you're listening to this, you'll be able to read it.
I have read Blanquitos, and it is a hell of a piece of work. I really recommend people check it out. I think that you will get a lot of enjoyment out of it. There's a lot of like specificity in it, a lot of interesting weirdness, and a lot of cool themes that I think rhyme with what we're going to be talking about today. And do you want to talk about the podcast as well?
Sure. Yeah, I'm also the host, the main host, with the most, I guess, at Podside Picnic, which you find people came over and talked a while back as well. Was it The Binding of Isaac?
Yeah, well,
Mhm.
probably 2 years ago, I would
Yeah,
say.
something like that. Yeah, this is like
Yeah.
still somewhat pandemic-y times ish.
Yeah. Well, we will link both of those things in the bio of this episode, but just want to get that out of the way. Today's book is one that I had wanted to revisit for a while. I read it well over a decade ago, and did not even remotely understand it. Now I think I understand it maybe 10%,
I'm right where
20%.
you are, Jacob, or more
I
at that
understand it
time.
better. Had either of you ever read this book or engaged with this author's work before? I know Lenore has a bio.
You know, I'm sorry, Lenore. You can go ahead. Go ahead if you want.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can get it out of the way pretty quickly. I didn't know about Giannina Braschi until y'all recommended this book to me. It's remarkable, like, because she's, within her like sphere of literature and culture, she's titanic.
Oh
But
yeah.
like it's illustrative of how easy it is to silo oneself off. Because yeah, not somebody I was familiar with.
Yeah, same here. I had never heard of Giannina Braschi before, and like honestly, as I was reading this, I was like going, "Why haven't I heard of her before?"
Yeah.
It. I'll confess that I was having a hard time getting into this at the beginning,
Mhm.
probably in part because there was and this is like this is gonna sound bad, but like at the beginning, like there's a certain corner of my brain, there's a brain cell just going like, this is like spoken word stuff.
Oh yeah.
I was
Very much.
And
thinking, do you know what? Yeah, the sorry, go ahead. I had a
no,
thought.
and that initial like sort of reaction where you're like sort of a knee jerk, like, oh, I don't want to, like, because you associate that with something like Rupi Kaur. Is it Rupi
Ruby
Kaur?
Carr, yeah.
I
And this
always
is,
tell the story of when I was in high school, I went to a spoken word poetry event or slam poetry, and a guy said the line, "I'm a psychopath walking down the psycho path." I'm like, and I'm like, I can never go to one of these again. I'm like, why are people snapping for this? But this is
I
much
mean,
better
look,
than that.
yeah. This does. I think that the issue is that that was a perhaps unfair sort of snap assessment of mine, because as I started getting into it, there is a different rhythm to it, and there's a much more, like, as she also integrates sort of like, because she talks about like being she writes in three languages: English, Spanglish, and Spanish,
Mhm.
which is, I mean, that rules. It's a little corny by now, but it still rules, because like I love it, because Spanglish is also has its own regionalisms. It's weird, right? Just as any sort of synthesized language or syncretized language would have, right? But at the same time, like, part of the fun of this and the playfulness with the language is when she actually brings in that third chord and puts in like some Spanish puns in there, and like Spanish wordplay, and you're like, you guys might, you might not have necessarily picked up on all of that, but I knew because I speak
Hmm.
Spanish.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was translating some stuff now and again so I could get the I like can sometimes pick up the meaning vaguely. Like I have taken my Spanish courses, but I was definitely pulling out some translators here and there. Not that that necessarily captures the full meaning of anything. That
Mhm.
does some impressive stuff, and also just the way she writes. She has this extremely unique voice to her, and I think part of that is that practice in multiple languages is allows her to take things at different angles, which she indeed talks about in the book.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, she's also like a poet amongst other things, right? So
Yes.
that, if there's anything that sort of convinces me that you probably know what you're talking about when you're writing, is if you have studied or written poetry at any point in time, because like it, poetry is just I don't do it very often. Yeah, I had some very sort of sad teenage poetry, which we won't talk about. It's just embarrassing. It's just
Rite of
embarrassingly
passage.
earnest.
Rite of passage.
Yeah, and so, but at the same time, like once you start writing a little bit of poetry, you start realizing just how much you actually like for something that is like 4 lines long, you have to work at it to
Mhm.
make everything sort of like come together thematically and like linguistically and all that good stuff, and provide an emotion and an image that are associated with each other.
Hmm.
uh, and that level of concision is something that you it's just drummed into your bones if you're writing poetry at any with any consistency. To bring that to like a full ass novel is yeah that's probably also why I struggled even myself, where I was like, man, this seems like dense.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a density to I mean, she's writing from the perspective of somebody who's reframing American culture, Anglo like culture writ large, like the Western canon, from the perspective of somebody who's like not native to it, and like engaging in a sort of defamiliarization process to sort of bring you to where she is, A, and B, also like that's sort of what piques my interest about the writing of it, because your spoken word analogy really got my attention, because it does remind me in places of my least favorite parts of Whipping Girl, like because there's parts of that book that are like expanded from spoken word performances of Julia Serrano's, but I do think, and I'm speaking as a rank outsider, people who are more experienced in the art form can feel free to yell at me on social media. But
No,
like,
you can't. No, you're not allowed. Lenore, no one's allowed to yell at Lenore.
okay, well, good night, folks. But no, yeah, the like, there is an element, I think, of like spoken word, of poetry, that's supposed to reel you in and get you thinking about deeper and more immersive forms of art. Is that totally off base? Like, the
I
wordplay, the wordplay, I think, gets your brain going.
Yeah, no, I think that's accurate, because later on, and this is this is where like I felt like I fell off a cliff and landed in another book, because
Hmm.
like half of the book is also like a play where
Yes.
the author is in the play, but she's also accompanied by Hamlet, that
Mhm.
Hamlet, yes, and Segismundo, who is a character from the I want to say 17th century playwright Pedro Calderón de la Barca.
Yeah.
Uh, La vida es sueño, which is life is a dream, or as I like to say, life is but a dream.
Yeah.
Um, and so once you read that play, which I felt like I needed to do homework, and I like you, I understood maybe about 10% of it, because it's like written in like courtly Spanish
Oh yeah.
of the time period. But Segismundo is sort of like he's a combination. You could see like echoes of Hamlet in it, but he's weirdly like also the man in the Iron Mask and the Omelas kid, because
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
he's locked in an like he's exiled and locked in a tower because he was destined to commit a crime, and his father, the king, decided, no, that will not happen under my reign, and he imprisoned him. So like also we got a little bit of a Minority Report, So
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
it's a
wait, a
pretty much.
prophecy. A prophecy. He killed his mother at birth. Talk about anti-Oedipus. Am I right? Yeah. I'm sorry. That's so
Ew.
stupid. It's a reverse Oedipus. And you also have Zarathustra is just hanging
Oh,
out.
that's right. We forgot that
And we will get
Zarathustra.
into it. But no, you're good. We'll get into it. But Lenore, first, let's hear about this author. I will say my experience with her was this, and then also Yo-Yo Boing, which I did not, which has been years. I read that in college, and I remember liking it, but uh, it also kind of picking up maybe not a significant amount of it, not fully getting it. I'll also note Columbia University did do a staging of the play in this book, and that's got to be hilarious to watch. Like what a What a show that would be to pull off.
Oh,
but-
we
yeah.
forgot to mention that one of the Droitis personae is actually the Statue of Liberty.
Oh yeah. Yeah, whose vagina will be described in this.
Yes.
And her sandal, if you're into that. But yeah, the author is it Giannina or Giannina? I don't know. But she was born in 1953, February 5th, 1953, in San Juan, Puerto Rico, to an Italian family, fairly well off. And she was active in extracurriculars in her youth, able to do that. She was a tennis player. She was a founding member of a children's chorus. She was in a theater. She actually won the women's. This was amazing to me. She won the women's tennis championship in Puerto Rico at the age of 13. I think she's still the youngest person ever to do that.
What is it with people who like flirt with postmodernism and being good at tennis?
Wait, who else?
Between her and David Foster Wallace.
Oh, fair enough. I mean, is the simplicity of tennis as sort of like the simple binary of the both sides of the tennis court something that inspires postmodernism? I don't know.
And then what?
You heard it here first, folks.
And to that end, what does pickleball inspire? Come back next week, and I'll have come up with a universal theory.
Well, that's the extra post on there. You know, we just keep adding posts.
Postmodernism,
We discussed that before, I think.
Triple postmodernism. We're back to normal modernism.
Mm-hmm.
So is Post Malone, like, was there a Malone period?
The Malone, yeah,
And
yeah.
a pre-Malone,
Malone, Moses Malone, the basketball player.
There we go.
Post Malone, somebody else who really enjoys Magic the Gathering. So she won the women's tennis championship in Puerto Rico, age 13. But not long after that, she decides tennis isn't for her. She describes a moment where she steps off of the tennis court. It's a hot day, and she's like, "This isn't for me. Like I've mastered this, and now I'm done, and I'm gonna move on." So she gets. She
did a Joe Pesci in My Cousin Vinny. I'm done with this guy.
I'm thinking of go back to our Battle Royale episode, that one character that like becomes a master violinist and then destroys the violin just to prove a point. No, she's considerably better. But she gets into modeling for her next like pursuit. Maybe I'm into this. She excels at that too. By 15, she's a prominent teenage model. She's named one of the 10 best dressed women in Puerto Rico around that time.
When she's 15.
And in her words, then one day I woke up and felt the same thing I felt when I walked off the tennis court. I said, I have something inside that I have to express in a different way. So she's done with modeling. So she gets into books and poetry, and she describes her personality as a constant transformation, constant revolution. Literature is one field that she can stick with to express it and remain in that sort of fluid space. Now she has genres, now she has forms that she can experiment with and flip between and still develop as a practitioner of this art. And she's really, really into it, and she sticks with it. By 18, she leaves home. She studies literature and philosophy in Europe. She's in Madrid, Rome, London, Paris. It's in Madrid now that she really, really gets into poetry. And she credits her interest in that to her Spanish mentors. She learns under big names like Carlos Busonio, Vicente Alexandre. She meets Jorge Luis Borges at one point, to whom she reads at the time her only poem, and he tells her, "Okay, you got something original there. You have it." His words.
Okay, I would take that. I would like probably put that on my tombstone.
Yeah.
Like put an attribution on my tombstone. That'd be great.
So she settles down in New York City eventually, and she moves on to a PhD in Hispanic literatures. This from Stony Brook University, and she goes on to teach at Rutgers, Colgate, and the City University of New York, teaching Hispanic literature. Now, during her studies, she's put out 3 collections of poetry with publishers in Barcelona and Milan. Those get adapted into her first book, El Imperio de los Sueños, in English, Empire of Dreams, in 1988. Instant classic of Latin American postmodernism. It draws critical comparisons to Samuel Beckett. Much like this one, it's sort of there's the poetry core of it, of course, but it's also dabbles in essay and theater. And And 10 years later, she publishes Jacob, her second book you're familiar with, Yo-Yo Boing, widely considered one of the greatest Spanglish novels. I think it was actually the first full-length Spanglish novel that I was able to find.
That was a book that I took a class on postmodernism in college that we read there, and also my teacher would just kind of refer back to it. That was my same teacher. He was so ideal as a postmodernism teacher. He was so depressed. he was such a good. He would have the energy for the class, but he would come in and he would be like, "Pretty sure we're gonna get nuked any day now. Not like we haven't earned it." It's just like every day, and I'm like, either this is the guy that was born to teach postmodernism, or he's doing a perfect act as a postmodernism teacher, and either way, perfect.
I mean, commitment to the bit, but you know what? I mean, do you still have contact? Because I mean, honestly, these days he might be feeling a little more glum.
Yeah, honestly, because that was. Yeah, we weren't even threatening Greenland at the time. So.
or is it Iceland? Who knows? They're all the same. Doesn't matter.
We might not be now. Apparently, like Trump just said that we got everything I want, and it may be one of those like offer him something he already has and hope he doesn't notice.
We'll find out. We sure will find out.
God, will we? I don't know. Maybe I needed a more depressed postmodernism teacher, because I feel like I really didn't understand that class. Greg Smith was a pretty happy guy.
I did want to point out that it's very funny to me, and I'm not entirely sure. I didn't really look into it because I saw the name of the novel and I was like, oh, that's funny. That's the name of a famous sort of like comedic actor in Puerto Rico as well, like very famous in TV and like sort of like common TV shows at like I want to say mid-century to probably mid-80s. I don't even know if he's still alive right now, but he's probably very elderly if he is.
Which person is this?
His stage name is in fact Jojo Boing.
Really?
Huh.
Yeah. Let me look it up real quick because it is like it's obviously like supposed to be a very his given name is Luis Antonio Rivera, and he passed away 3 years ago. So he was 93 when he passed, but like he was well known through like the quote golden age of Puerto Rican television.
Wow. Yeah, there's layers and layers of this, to be sure. Now, United States of Banana is her first book, written entirely in English.
Aside from there's definitely like quotes in Spanish, but it's not long passages.
Right, exactly.
Well, one of the things that's interesting about this, and this is probably something that may have passed over your heads, because it's one of the things that the book does really well throughout is to always circle back to the Puerto Rican status question, right?
Mm-hmm.
And granted, there are at the time of the writing, there were only three main parties, and the three main parties are
or wishy-washy and wishy-washy, of course.
Yes, that's exactly it. So you have WASHI, which she associates with the PNP, which is the Progressive New Party. Progressive here is ironic because they are currently the most Trump, the most Trump leaning of the parties right now. They want statehood. So WASHI, Washington, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wishy-washy is the status quo party, which is the PDP, which is the Popular Democratic Party, who was founded. This is the initially founding party of Puerto Rico that ends up in the governorship as the first Puerto Rican governor, Luis Muñoz Marin. And they had obviously they started with a motto of Pan, Tierra y Libertad, which is bread, bread, soil, and liberty. Very very similar to other socialist creeds, but at the same time they were just simply fence sitting. There was a period of fluorescence in the initial imperial period, where obviously that party wanted to show that this was how they made Puerto Rico modern, right? But
Sure.
also ignoring that this is a convenient lie that sort of doesn't view what's happening as simply capital investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Wishy, which the people that wish for independence, because Puerto Rico hasn't been independent. It passed hands from one empire to the other. So it's been in sort of perpetual colonialism for a long, long time. And so I did find that very funny because she divides it into, was it wishy-washy, and washy.
Yeah. And those are sort of the three trends that continually reemerge through the book, even sometimes when you feel like we're completely lost, we're not talking about this thing anymore. What are we even on about? Those words will emerge. So an important signpost. Before we just get into what this thing is, Lenore, do you have anything else on Braschi that is important for us to know?
Well, she does come down on the wishy side of that whole thing. She's a vocal advocate.
I guessed that.
vocal advocate for Puerto Rican independence. She's consistently protested the U.S. military using the island for target practice for military training. This was interesting to me. In the late 90s, early 2000s, she was involved in a successful campaign to force the Navy to actually withdraw from the island of Vieques. And also involved Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, Rigoberta Menchú, and RFK Jr.
RFK Jr.
That RFK.
Somebody make a Forrest Gump movie about RFK Jr.'s life, because he just keeps popping up places.
Well, you know what? You could. I have my theory that really we should trust in the worm, because the worm is the Kuato. He's like in Total Recall. He's the voice of reason. He's actually trying to help.
The United States of a banana, but instead of escaping the Statue of Liberty, it's escaping RFK Jr. It's the worm.
the maze of the folds of his brain.
Yeah.
Segismundo will escape RFK Jr.'s vagina.
Oh, worse. He escapes Trump's neck vagina. Remember that?
Yes.
Oh God, yeah. She's
that's where the new world is struggling to be born.
Yes. The time of monsters.
Hey, listen, I'll take it. If there's a new world, I'll take it, no matter where.
She's still alive. So she's still alive. So if you're listening to this, Miss Braschi, I'm very sorry.
Many apologies. Sorry.
Every now and then we've been contacted by an author that like, I heard the episode, and so far every time it's been positive.
Yeah, this is going to be the Yellow Lenore episode.
Hey, yeah.
Braschi, incidentally, has had one book since then, 2024's Putinoika, and that Putinoika. Yeah, I'm intrigued by that. It's her COVID novel. It's her long 2016 novel. Basically, there's a lot of the Trump Putin interplay to it. I'm curious because like I having read this, I trust Braschi not to rehash the like Russiagate stuff.
Oh, this is a hell of a cover. The cover of this is great. Yeah, y'all should look. It's like to describe it for the listeners. It's like Putinoika spelled out as like on Hollywood, and then it's like a Greek painting below. There's the severed head of the Statue of Liberty. In the background, you see like the Kremlin, but it's clearly in California. Yeah, this is an interesting piece of art right here. The Statue of Liberty clearly a thing that's still stuck in her mind.
Mm.
And she's still living. I didn't just make that up, right?
Yeah, her birthday is in a couple weeks.
Huh? Well, happy birthday!
Hey, happy birthday! But yeah. I do find it funny because if you live in New York, or are like obviously the Statue of Liberty is like this big symbol, right? I think that a lot of people in the U.S. just don't really think of it anymore. People are sort of confused.
I've never seen it, so I mean, I've seen pictures, obviously. Never seen it in person. Maybe it would have an impression on me if I did.
Well, I think it's a symbol if you're an immigrant, right?
Sure.
And I think that if you, I mean, let's be clear here. Like, if you are one of the people that thinks that you are a heritage American, for instance,
Oh
you,
God.
you have lost any type of like that. That does not have any meaning to you. In fact, it has the opposite meaning. I would say, you know, to a certain extent, you would hate the Statue of Liberty because it's sort of a symbol of why people come here, right?
Yeah, because and I yeah, it's this idea this well, first of all, it's a multinational thing from the beginning, right? Because it's a
Mhm.
French gift. So it's
Mhm.
not made in the United States. It's a symbol of international friendship, admittedly between, at the time empires, but still, it is already, if you're again heritage American, quote unquote, tainted by this sort of internationalism. And then yeah, obviously it is like the classic all huddled masses line, right? As we know, obviously, never has there actually been a time where that's been true, but there have been times where it's been easier to cross the boundary than it is
Mhm.
now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I also think it's interesting for her, this whole novel being sort of around this issue of Puerto Rico.
Mhm.
And aside from
Well,
when it's about 9/11.
yeah, like
Uh,
I would say that if we wanted to add to that, I would say that to a certain extent, it's very much like, and I know that perhaps on occasion, any one of us has been sort of struck by, oh man, that's fucking corny. Why are you fighting for something? They're gonna do the worst thing anyway, But
yeah,
it does matter, symbols
Mhm.
do matter. They don't,
sure.
but also they absolutely do, right? It's something to it's something to rally around and then produce an actual form into the world that actually derives from that symbol. So to a certain extent, if you like, Puerto Ricans probably see, and given a large amount of them ended up in New York City specifically, that's like a very big thing. It's also like the site, if I'm remembering correctly, it's one of the sites where the young lords hung a flag from the crown,
Yeah.
right, as a form of protest. I forget what year this is. I want to say it's like 67,
Yeah.
68, something like that.
Six,
Um,
seven.
so I mean, it's always one of these things where you do run across people who believe in stuff and you think it's corny, but really the thing is that, like, yeah, that stuff is important. People believe in it. They want, and to a certain extent, it serves as like also a symbol of what we expect of this country. And
Sure.
as you said, we've never really we've never really, like, the U.S. has never really lived up to that,
Right.
but
But
Mhm.
if
everyone
it's
fights for
meaningful
it.
to a person, if it's meaningful to a person, especially a marginalized person, then like if we can do something with that, right? Uh
Mhm.
I want to throw out here, I just remembered, I hadn't thought about this in years. I got in trouble for writing an essay for my college as publication. Like my college's student publication. The essay was called "I wrote this paper instead of blowing up the Statue of Liberty," and I got in trouble. It was in 2020. I got in trouble for that. Not in a lot of trouble, but a little bit of trouble. I
For
gotta say,
what? I didn't blow up the Statue of
right?
Liberty. Am
I
I guilty of
express,
not doing
I
terror?
expressly said that I did not blow up the Statue of Liberty.
Oh, so you just copied the National Lampoon one,
Yeah.
huh? Buy this magazine or we'll shoot the dog.
Anyway, but
Oh, that's so good.
I guess let's get into how this book is framed up here. There's really two parts.
Hmm.
The whole thing's called United States of Banana, but part one is called Ground Zero, and part two is called United States of Banana. Part one deals a lot more with 9/11 and the aftermath of it. And she started writing this book, I know, not too long after 9/11 occurred. And from the very beginning, I'm just going to read the quote at the very beginning of the book, right as we open. It's chapter one, Death of a Businessman. And it says, "It's the end of the world. I was excited by the whole situation. Well, if everybody is going to die, die hard, shit. But what do I know? Is this an atomic bomb? The end of the world? The end of the millennium? No more fear of being fired for typos or tardiness, digressions or recessions. And what a way of being fired! Bursting into flames without 2 weeks' notice and without 6 months of unemployment and without sick leave or vacation or comp time, without a word of what was to come on a glorious morning when nature ran indifferent to the course of man. And it goes on, but I mean, it goes on to describe her seeing this the speaker seeing the speaker who is very much just the insert of the author, seeing the torso of a man without arms, legs, or head falling, and this torso sort of being this, this businessman, and his torso being a recurring thing from the beginning of this book, as the speaker and everyone wrestles with 9/11, the instant death, the death toll, of course, and the destruction, but also the emotional and shock, and also the knowledge of the violence that would be begat by this act. And that's kind of the thing I read at the first, is it said, you can say, well, more people die of AIDS all the time, and that's true, but what is going to come out of this act, not emotionally, but also like physically, the mass slaughter of people in the Middle East and repression at home, that will come out of this act. And I think that's an important thing. So, this is also, while it doesn't talk at length about things like the Afghanistan and Iraq wars, it alludes to it, and it's, kind of existing in the backdrop of this whole thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the immediacy of it as well. Like it's as you say, the fallout from 9/11, the so-called global war on terror that would go on to kill, almost 5 million people, displace tens of millions more. Like that's set aside for now. And this is one part indeed where like the immediacy and the reaction really, really elevated the prose for me. In that second paragraph that you mentioned where there's the torso, right? This businessman on the ground was clutching a briefcase in his hand and on his finger the wedding band. I suppose he thought his briefcase was his life or his wife, or that both were one because the briefcase was as tight in hand as the wedding band. And I really like that internal rhyme. I like that cadence to this witness of tragedy, because it reads, it's trying to force it to make sense, right? There is a cadence now instead of this cacophony that you're experiencing. Like, even if the attempt sounds insane, like it's this atavistic desire to force a pattern onto it, because there's a fundamental break now with how you thought the world was and how you're perceiving it.
Well, I mean, there's also that playfulness right at that the beginning paragraph, right? Where, there's the digression of fired, meaning two things, right?
Yeah.
Fired, he's on fire, and fired, like, oh, you're fired from your job, and
Right.
and there's of course this distraction, right? You fired from your job, and then it goes off into that branch, because obviously you don't want to really look at the real thing that's happening. No 2 weeks notice, no 6 months of unemployment, and so on and so forth. You're sort of trying to make a joke of it because it's absurd. I remember waking up that day, turning on the news, and not understanding the images that I was looking at, because it's like, what is happening? What?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
why
I'm
are
curious.
these buildings on fire?
Where were you at when that happened?
I mean, I was in Puerto Rico. I remember I was supposed to go to work and shit, and I woke up, and my partner at the time was in the shower, and I'm calling to her and going there's something going on.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening, but you got to come out and look at this. And she came out still somewhat dripping, and we just stood there. It was
Yeah.
what do you? It's just, it was too big to really understand.
Yeah.
Lenore, were you still living in Europe when it happened?
No, I had I'd come back earlier that year, I think, because we moved back right after Bush stole the election. Not because Bush stole the election, just that was the timing of it.
We're so excited. On the record, Lenore was hype. Young Lenore was ready to go. Finally, we're taking America back from the communist Bill Clinton.
That's some of the earliest political that's some of the earliest political content that I became aware of was my folks talking about how terrible a person Bush was.
Oh God, I'm glad you didn't. I was on the edge of my seat. I thought you were going to say the political content was jib jabs, and I was like, oh my God, that is cursed.
Yeah, I wasn't. This was a jib jab household, like the whole what was it? The whole Bush Carrier thing. This land is your land.
I've watched those, and I'm like, I thought I had buried these memories somewhere.
I'm a great crusader. You're a liberal wiener.
This land will surely vote for me.
You're a liberal sissy.
You're a right-wing nut job.
You're a pinko commie.
You're dumb as a doorknob.
Hey, you got that Botox.
But I still won 3 Purple Hearts. This land will surely vote for me.
But yeah,
it's like pre South Park stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
yeah. With I think not as noxious. Not as noxious as South Park tends to get.
Not as politically incisive and
I know, like
yeah,
it's
no,
all-
Lamar, I am curious. What was your experience of?
I mean, all yeah. I didn't see it like live. I was in school at that time, and I don't actually recall if they sent us home early or if it was normal that day. But I just remember walking home because I lived right down the street from my elementary school. Mom was walking me home, and she was like, "Hey, did you see what happened today?" And yeah.
I remember specifically, I was in the Family Christian Bookstore, or maybe Lifeway. It's one of the Christian chains that were big in the Southeast at the time. And some lady just came in and yelling about it and said that America was ending. Pretty much a character from this novel, to be honest. In fairness, I think her husband was a pilot and she wasn't able to get through to him. My guess is he was fine, just mathematically speaking. But I can imagine how that would be frightening.
Well, and there is a certain immediacy. There is a certain sense from the time that I do recall that which is ludicrous now in many ways looking back on it. But like there's a bit on page 5 here in my printing. I don't know if it was because of the mourning rituals or whether the mannequins were afraid to be blonde targets of terrorists. Even if they didn't want to look American, they were out of fashion after the Twin Towers fell. That bit where like the mannequins are like deliberately not blonde that she sees in the storefront, and it does speak to a certain on edgeness that the shattering of this hubris engenders, right? America is supposedly invincible, and now it's not, and it could happen anywhere. I remember hearing that my father worked for Coca-Cola at the time, and I remember hearing like the whole Coca-Cola building in downtown Atlanta was evacuated because, oh my God, like what's more American than Coca-Cola? It's like, it's a fucking like corporate building, whatever. That's not exactly what they're concerned with, but like it's a very
Osama bin Laden hated Coca-Cola.
Yeah. They find
that would happen in this book, though. Like,
find
that would
his-
be a thing in this book, is like a plane crashing into the Coca-Cola center.
They find in his hard drive like a copy of Final Fantasy VII, some heinous porn, and just screeds directed against Coca-Cola. Like
He's a Pepsi guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, or was he like a new Coke guy?
Oh, that's the grudge. That's the grudge.
I got to give a shout out to my dad. One of the best bits of all time, and I didn't appreciate it as a child, and I do now, is that he still, when he's going out anywhere, makes sure to say, "No, I would like a Coca-Cola Classic, please." And as a kid, I didn't understand how funny that was and how like upset my mom would get. And now I'm like, a joke that only gets funnier every year.
But yeah, it's like 'cause it speaks to like a detachment that many of us in the Imperial Core have from the impact of Empire. Because it's the aesthetics that we notice first and that we think might come under attack first, right?
Well, I think it's an important quote here is towards the end of this beginning section. She says, and she's been talking about these other nations, and she says, "You found terrorists with explosives. You went for cheap. Forgetting that cheapness is cutting liberty off at the knee. Now we cannot walk. What do you want us to do? Find cheap legs in other countries that will walk for us? You always thought if they want to walk, it's because they're poor. We go by cars and jets, but you forgot that fuel is a luxury and that it would end. Oil is coming to an end, and now we have no legs to walk. I thought the brain could rule over the legs, and I thought the brain was white, and the legs were yellow or brown. And I thought I could rule with my brain. And even if I cut my legs off, I would find cheap legs in other parts of the world. But now I am a mutilated body. I lost my legs in Korea. I lost my arms in Vietnam. I lost my head in Kuwait. And I lost my torso at the World Trade Center.
Looping it back around to that torso, baby. But also, like, I do like the way that she orders it in such a way that it's obvious that she's making a commentary on how sort of interlinked and entwined right now sort of capital is with these ideas of white supremacy, because the head is white, the legs are brown or yellow, and you're like, okay, so I mean, this is exactly how we've established like these long supply chains that begin and end in the U.S. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That that U.S. corporations are ostensibly in control of, and then like they play like dumb whenever someone says, well, there's these these violations in such and such a company, such and such a factory in China or wherever it may be, right? And they're like, oh, it's the locals. They're just, because that's also part of the white supremacy. You could blame the locals for being weird savages instead of, it's not us. It's like, well, if you tell them that they only have, 3 seconds to make a shirt, your metrics are made in such a way that they need to be as efficient as possible and to the bone. Who is really the person that is in charge here?
Well, and it's literally, I mean, just towards the end of the book, there's a whole bit about standard of living versus standard of morality, and the two do not equal each other and often are at ends. And that exact process is what creates that, right? The high standard of living, large access to very cheap goods. Where does that come from? That access to fuel, right? That she acknowledges as a luxury that's running out. In sort of a metaphorical sense, things like that. Where does that come from? And that's what she's kind of trying to direct us to. Another thing she directs us here to is this experience of feeling foreign, speaking Spanish, and feeling alienated from both Spanish and English. And a moment that, like, when I read it, that like really stuck out to me, Karlo, and something you wrote in Blanquitos was about watching WWE dubs that are not properly synced up with the thing, and like learning it and having that experience of kind of English to try and practice English. Your characters do in Blanquitos, and I don't know why that just like occurred to me when she was talking about this and this disconnect. I guess there's something about the disjointedness of the language and the thing happening. It's a completely different context, but I guess it's just a thing that came to my mind. Well, I mean, and also another reason that I can tell everyone to read Blanquitos. It'll be linked in the episode description.
Well, I mean, it's also like the one, and not to puff myself up here, but I did want to point out that one of the reasons that it made me think like I put that in that story is precisely because it's so weird to me, right? Like they had a repeater, like a relay station in the Virgin Islands so that US GIs wouldn't have to learn the language.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they could still like obviously like the local TV stations had their own local programming, but obviously they would also make space for the popular shows, right? Like obviously the $6 Million Man which is one of the shows that I described there was immensely popular. So obviously you're going to have it, right? You're going to have it locally, but also the GIs that are living on the base that are slowly sort of terraforming your island are going to watch and not have to ever learn Spanish. I went to school on a base, and at least one of my teachers had lived there for 38 years and never learned a word of Spanish.
Jesus Christ.
Did not, refused to. And at that point you go, well, okay, I'm not going to mention anything in this classroom to you, but Like, I have some thoughts as to why you might not think Spanish is worth learning.
Right, exactly. 38 years. Come on,
Mhm.
you know.
Yep.
At that point, you'd at least think you'd pick it up. Uh,
At least a por favor or
yeah.
donde está la biblioteca, you know?
And the and her expressing this alienation is very interesting too. She says, "It is my desire to express my native self with my foreign tongue and to make my foreign tongue part of my native self. The fact is that speaking my foreign language, I have become more distant. I hardly remember the tongue I first spoke." Um, and this idea that she doesn't feel like, oh, I'm now confident in this new language, so this feels like me. It doesn't. But she can't just slip back into the language she feels confident in because she doesn't feel right in that either. She has knowledge of both, but she feels this sense of deep displacement. That
Well, and I'll point out that this is something that I recognize. If
yeah,
you asked me, if you were to ask me, like put a gun to my head and ask me, which language did you learn first? I couldn't tell you.
yeah,
Both, maybe. I don't know. It's a jumble, you know, and like that's also so. One of the things that's interesting here is that for a long time, I think it's the Independence Party in Puerto Rico has moved away from this, thankfully, but there was a long time that they linked very nationalistically language with identity, right? Like
Mhm.
like your identity as a Puerto Rican, and to a certain extent, it wasn't helpful because like someone like Giannina, who it probably also considers herself somewhat New Yorican because she lives in New York, um, would probably be viewed as not really being Puerto Rican by certain Puerto Ricans, which fucking sucks.
Mhm.
Well, the this entire section at the beginning, I encourage people that this seems interesting to read the book for this first section because there are so many, and second, but there are so many concepts being thrown around that we can't get into all of them. Just looking through it, you have a part in the chapter "Smoker and the Spender" that feels very much like a man in the rat race, addicted to spending in a Fight Club esque way, but he doesn't have enough. Unlike an Office Space Fight Club, he actually isn't making it. It's a post recession, not a 90s version. That's where you get the quote, "Your country does to other countries what your boss does to you."
I
The
love that.
arbitrariness of it is compared to the DC sniper. Can't help but think of Venezuela when I read that,
Well,
in this
can
recent events.
well, and can we point out that that's something I've been thinking about a lot recently,
Yeah,
like the idea of people. So there's this, there's been a long time. Like it's been a long time thing in the U.S. where run the U.S. like a business, and then you go,
yeah,
wait, hold on, but businesses, if you've ever worked in a business and had a shitty boss that's stupid as shit, businesses are not democracies.
yeah. Far from it.
Uh, so why would you ever want to do that unless you don't want democracy anymore? You just want to be told what to do, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was just, Forbes just ran an article on 30% they estimated of job postings are just fake.
Yep.
Is that that's that how we want to run the country? Seems like it these days, but you know, uh, just just not following any kind of use case logic at all. There's also, I'm just looking through different parts. It talks a lot about the English Spanish divide. It talks a lot about 9/11 and introduces two or three very important concepts. One we already talked about, which is wishy-washy, wishy and washy. It is the concept of the chicken with its head cut off, which is basically, the head and the body don't feel separate. When they do, they realize the head was controlling the body, and now
Mhm.
America is sometimes the head and sometimes the body, depending on
I mean
where we go.
that also sort of like echoes something that the great serpent wizard Alan Moore has said, that
Yeah,
the most frightening thing about the modern world is that for all that we want to believe otherwise, it's rudderless.
yeah,
Mhm.
Like no one's in control, and that can be very frightening, but it's also like to a certain extent there is a lot of opportunity there if you know how to grab it.
Yeah, I mean, what And that's something that the book does really well, right? Is portray how insane it is to navigate such rudderlessness, to have to get up and continue to go to work while whole nations are dismantled just hours by plane from where you live. Right? There's a bit here that I quite like. You show me your flag of pride, your pledge of allegiance to freedom of speech. But where is my freedom of speech if I can't offend you? Because you will recite a declaration of facts and notes of my impracticality, my insensitivity, my avoidance of the issue to create waves, to imply that as a foreigner I don't understand, because I don't laugh at the jokes of the chattering mouthtrap of the smiling damned villain, right? Like, not only are you at the mercy of this, hegemony that is US empire at the end of the day, but also like rhetorically, right? You have to not only speak out against the injustices of the day, but also do so in a language that's foreign to you. If you're not from the imperial core, if you're not grown up and immersed in it, it is a monumental effort to even begin to put together a language of resistance.
I started to put together, and it didn't quite come together a bit in my notes about a right winger reading that passage and thinking it's about cancel culture. And it's exactly, they're like, this is exactly what it's like when I got banned from Facebook. Yeah.
No one would reply to me. I didn't
My
get enough
grandkids-
likes.
Yeah, my grandkids will not respond to the AI videos I'm sending of Trump flexing.
Well, and now all those grandpas have made it our problem. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. Thank God. The last thing I wanted to read from this is that there's just this bit at the chapter. The last thing I wanted to read from this first section is from this chapter, Language of Mass Destruction, which is maybe to me like one of, if not the best, like synthesis of like postmodern style writing and the anti-colonial that I've ever read. And it says, this is the era of ticks and dust, of convents and seminaries, of nuns and priests, of clerics and sheiks, cloaked in black robes, the color of obscurantism. See no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Eat now or forever hold your tongue. Bite your tongue. If you don't speak now, I will speak tomorrow, even if I don't eat now. Nobody will hold my peace or send me to sleep. Nobody will substitute one reality with another reality. But realities are doomed to collide, one being devastated and harassed by the other. The other. Identities are not tangible anymore. If you look for an identity, you find inequality. If you look for similarities, you separate one truth from another. The self has been refracting. Decimals are decimating. Solutions are not consulting consultants to find jobs. Jobs are out of work. Meaning has become so valuable, so huge, so stupendously absurd, or so useless. Such a glittering object of desire, it glistens, it supersizes all the shapes. The forms have shrunk. They are crouching in shame for having been consumed by the fads of consumerism. It goes on, and it's this like not knowing how to communicate through all the noise, right? And which is so much of what this kind of this is not exactly postmodern work in the sense that people think about postmodernism, but in that idea of like in this culture where there's so much noise, there's so much bullshit, where everything's been said, and you're just pulling from pieces of formerly said things, quotes, and re-putting it together and taking simile and metaphor and patching it together and shoving it back out to mean something. I find that to be very effective. And it's also what the second half entirely is the repurposing of symbols and literary figures and characters and quotes and concepts into something new. Which is, I think, if there is any kind of, I guess if there is any, there's a lot to hate on from this sort of literary era of like postmodernism and all that, and a lot of nihilism, which I don't think she brings here. But this is something I think constructive coming out of it. This sort of voice trying to scream through the bullshit that I find very effective.
Yeah, absolutely. It puts me in mind of, I was reading an interview of hers that she gave in about 2011, where she describes the Puerto Rican diaspora as like definitionally like rootless, right? The metaphor she uses is like stray dogs who like nourish the roots of wherever they land, but who are and synthesize something new from interacting with and repurposing them, but who are defined by a lack of their own roots. There's a bit here that crystallizes it really well in Tongue Machine, this chapter. Home has no return address, no telephone, no TV, no email, nothing that comforts my spirit, nothing that says I live here, because I was born here, because I don't believe my country is the place where I was born, nor the one I was raised to be, who I am, and I don't have a who I am in I am who I was, or who I will be, right? You're constantly in transition in her position to a more legible version of yourself that is not yourself.
I think that is as good as any way to talk about that first section. Do either of you have anything you want to add about the first section before we get into the play?
No. Let's do it.
We're now at the play, United States of Banana. To the general arc, we now actually have a plot, sort of. And the plot is the author's self-insert character, Zarathustra, the founder of Zoroastrianism, and obviously from Thus Spake Zarathustra, the Nietzsche's book, and Hamlet are seeking out it's Segismundo, is that how you say it?
That's correct.
From Life is a Dream, as we said at the top. And he has been bound beneath the Statue of Liberty. He has been bound there for 100 years for the reasons we discussed earlier, for the crime of his birth. And these characters are going to go after him, try to free him, in the process, go up against the American Empire, run up against the American Empire, which is run by Gertrude from Hamlet. Gertrude and Segismundo's father, and they're going to, when they see a revolutionary movement coming, try to give a conciliatory thing to it. They're going to try to say, okay, we're going to integrate Puerto Rico into the United States, and then they're going to say, and then we're going to annex all of Latin America, and they're going to try and put it in liberatory language, leading to the characters taking the head of Lady Liberty, sailing it to Puerto Rico, declaring their independence, and fighting a revolutionary war with coconuts and phrases against the U.S. government, until finally China intervenes and is like, okay, we're going to call your we're going to cancel some debt for the United States if y'all will fuck off.
That is how China would wage that. I feel.
That's Chinese interventionism. Be like the interesting parts are, of course, in the details, but that's, I think, the overarching what happens if I'm not missing anything.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what I got from it. I do find it really funny because she is obviously drawing a much more sort of like a much closer link between Segismundo and Hamlet as characters, as like characters that sort of fed off of each other in certain ways, right? And that's sort of also doubled, but because, like, for instance, like in all of this, Hamlet must be feeling really weird because, like, his mom is marrying again and some other guy. And now he's got a stepbrother that's been locked in a tower. What the hell is that all about?
Hamlet is so whiny, appropriately so. He's just the whole time. He's just like, he's the whole time he sees his mom. He's like, is my mother in heat again? He's so angry.
He's also like, he hates his mom so much.
And he hates Ophelia. He's like, Ophelia made me weak. And I'm like, I think you might just be weak, bud. To tell you.
Well, you know, he totally bought into the toxic empathy idea.
Well, why do we think these characters, specifically, I can understand kind of Segismundo's being here as this idea of like this fated someone who is sealed away because of his potential. But Zarathustra and Hamlet, what are we thinking, folks? Why are these dudes here?
This is literally something that's just occurred to me within the past couple of minutes or so. I find it so interesting that the villain of the piece is Gertrude from Hamlet. That she's running the American Empire essentially and trying to do the Donroe Doctrine, now that we call it.
Yeah.
Because like it
doesn't work as well when it's like the Guro. Yeah, it doesn't hit the same way as Donroe.
Well, but yeah, I suppose.
We're in Basilio. Is it Basilio?
Basilio.
Yeah. Basilio, yeah.
Yeah, but like she's from a play written in early modern English. She's from a British play that I find it fascinating that she's here now, because it's like it's a legacy that by virtue of language America feels that it can kind of lay claim to, and nobody questions the ability of the hegemon to be able to be able to appropriate this character in this way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I also think that she's also being very playful, because she's obviously drawing a link, and we get the poet later on, because she has an attribution at the beginning of the book to Rubén Darío, which is a Nicaraguan poet who is the attribution is, if Segismundo grieves, Hamlet feels it, right? And obviously, like as I said before, there are some parallels between the two characters. They're both princes. They're both sent to exile and yada yada yada. But at the same time, like Segismundo is very different in how the play approaches, because it's more about like free will and like divine rulership and yada yada, that type of thing. Hamlet is much more existentialist.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore,
shockingly, Hamlet has an even worse relationship with his father and mother.
yes, exactly right. And Segismundo has been imprisoned for 100 years. So there you have it. I mean, also, let's not forget that Hamlet isn't Hamlet like a teenager? So it feels very appropriate for him to be like gloom and doom all the, oh man, my mom's marrying another dude.
And, I'm talking about college a lot tonight, but in college, we did in our class, we did a film of Hamlet where we dressed up in like goth, like teenage goth, like clothing. I was Hamlet, and I had like eyeliner, and I was in the Milledgeville, Georgia cemetery, just like walking around and looking really sad. And then the duel was, I had a poison skull ring, a little edgy skull ring. That was a lot of fun. I think we got like a B. I don't think we did that. We actually fulfilled the rules on the rubric, but she gave us a decent enough grade because we sure did put our hearts into it.
Mm-hmm,
but what about the founder of Zoroastrianism? Why is he here?
I am thinking that it's more almost like it's the Zoroaster that Nietzsche.
Yeah,
like it's Zoroaster filtered through Nietzsche, and therefore it's really Nietzsche. And the idea of nihilism, of like raw power and nihilism and all that good stuff, or bad stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, you have moments here where occasionally he'll refer to things like balance, which seems to be a nod towards Zoroastrianism as a religion itself. Like he talks about, I walk a tightrope, and it's like, okay, that literally is like kind of Zoroastrianism, right? That there's like two gods equally, one that's of equal power, evil and good, basically. I know that's a very massive simplification.
Yeah, it's super reductionist, but yeah, it's more or less in a nutshell. It's like Ahura Mazda is like the evil god, and Zoroaster.
Never forget, C.S. Lewis, the Christian author, said he considered, if he wasn't a Christian, he would be he would believe in Zoroastrianism.
Oh wow, okay, all right. That would have been an interesting turn in later life if he'd been like, you know what, I want a sky burial. Fuck that shit.
I'm not kidding. And one of his letters describes it as, quote, the second manliest religion behind Christianity.
Okay, so is he saying manly in the sense of masculine, or manly in the sense of this embodies like what it is to be human?
I think masculine, as in it was like strong and good and cool. There's real manly men write about wardrobes and phones, of course. Anyway,
all right, CS. All right.
Anyway, so yeah, this whole section is very like just tons of stuff happening. We're running around. We're approaching Lady Liberty. We have a whole underground economy under Lady Liberty's skirts where you can smell her vagina. You've got, and she's pregnant from Segismundo because he was trying to get out and accidentally impregnated her in the process of trying to escape.
Like you do.
As one does. We have just a deeply confusing.
Do we think that he ended up going back into the womb? Was that his prison?
I guess, right? Because it says he's in a nutshell a bunch of times.
Well, so was Austin Powers, but I didn't think it was very serious in that.
Right. Right. There's a deeply confusing blitz of info too. Like you'll just have a moment where it's like, well, they say the Statue of Liberty's cat is Jewish, so we shouldn't tell the German shepherds.
It's
Or,
so
or
wild.
or you'll have a guy who's like, well, Osama bin Laden was a CIA agent, and then he just keeps walking, and you're just like, okay, have a good one, man.
There's a fascinating parallel and and there's a fascinating prescient parallel in the Declaration of Independence bit, and it's jumping ahead a little bit. It's halfway through, but where
This thing
she's
jumps around.
oh
so
yeah
you're all
oh
right.
yeah she's saying here, the powers of the world are shifting. Culture is becoming more relevant than politics. Like I couldn't help but think of I couldn't help but
Bannon?
yeah, Steve Bannon, politics downstream of culture, right? His whole weirdness that turned out to be like weirdly like predictive of where the right has gone in this country. Like cities more relevant than nations, continents more relevant than nations, but continents less relevant than cities. Language is more relevant than nations. Languages are alive, nations are dead, right? There's this bizarre alienation and fragmentation that's taken place that forces you to rethink what communication is, what organizing is, and how to build new narratives, right? And how to convey to people the enormity of what's going on in the world.
Also, I do like that she's like power ranking nations and cities and stuff like that. But you're absolutely right. I did think of that exact same thing, and it comes at this moment where you have United States of Banana, the American Empire, trying to reassert itself in this moment because it feels the characters running in this feel if Puerto Rico breaks away, then the whole thing will fall apart. Then the whole project will begin to dissolve. And they have this idea that we have to expand, we have to conquer our hemisphere, which in 2011 was written in 2011, but it feels very prescient now. I mean, not that the United States was ever not doing imperialism, but in the era of, again, the Don Roe doctrine, in the era of the Department of Homeland Security posting on Twitter, "This is our hemisphere. We'll do what we want." Um, that it feels increasingly relevant, and I mean, you have in this the there's a plot point where Gertrude sends all of the white Cubans back to Cuba to take over the island and then invade Puerto Rico to give a pretext for the United States to invade Puerto Rico. So you have them doing like, you know, ridiculous slapstick, but like CIA ops, that you have them doing these intelligence operations and these tricks and
Well, I mean, let's not forget that the CIA tried to
do
like
that, yeah.
assassinate Castro, like in
time.
Looney Tunes ways. They wanted to get switch his lotion so his beard would fall off. They wanted to it wasn't an exploding cigar. They wanted to poison the tobacco in the cigar.
Mhm.
Like
Mm.
these are all sorts of things, and like I love it. It's very reminiscent of right now where like if you're in the U.S., people think that like threatening, like saying that annexing Canada, it's a joke. It's like, motherfucker, if you're on the outside and you are being someone like the biggest superpower is joking, quote unquote, about taking you over,
Mhm.
that is not a fucking joke.
Right.
Yeah,
Uh,
they can and will just come to your country and grab your president and take him back. And it is no exaggeration to yeah, like the empire will do it at once.
I mean, there used to be some fictions around that, but
Yeah.
mhm.
but now it's just very nakedly obvious
Mm-hmm.
that whatever you can get away with goes.
There's also an odd through line in this where they keep referring to this character Oliver Exterminator. I believe I looked that up. That was a pest control company in Puerto
Yep.
Rico. I
Is
think.
very famous in Puerto Rico. I remember like that jingle, like in my childhood. I remember that jingle very prominently. Uh, and it's funny because it's Oliver doesn't sound like a very Spanish name. So
No.
So it's also like very interesting because I haven't researched it. They could have been like born and raised and they just had Oliver as a last name. It happens, right?
Mhm.
But at the same time, like I do wonder if Giannina's just having some fun and like pointing out that like even the businesses are American in Puerto Rico.
Oliver North also came to mind when I first read that. I don't know if it's in her head or not, but Oliver Exterminator wouldn't be a bad name for him. uh in a different way. But so they've got this whole bit where it's playing this jingle, and it's talking about this idea of this conqueror who is also an exterminator, and the idea that like you were saying, you can joke about it, you can whatever, but there is the genuine power of this country to obliterate its adversaries. And when in this book these characters declare a free Puerto Rico, the United States does invade and can only be stopped because of its money, because their money gets fucked with.
Right.
I guess I wonder what we make of this. What we make of this, like, this is, I think it's interesting that, like, in this book, the United States is not stopped through military might, even though it has this interesting moment of like, all of Latin America is going to fight it. Like, they say Chavez is sending his fleet, and Morales is sending his fleet, which, like, kind of interesting, putting it in the time, right? Um, but ultimately, it is just through the United States reaching its fiscal limits that is able to be stopped. What do we think about the way that that kind of the sort of the saga, such as it is, concludes of this battle between nations?
I mean, I think it speaks to the anxiety that was prevalent, right, throughout the global war on terror, which is that this is going to bankrupt the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, 20 plus years later, it turns out it hasn't bankrupted it because we can, like the U.S. can print its own money and can decide
Yeah.
whatever the fuck it wants.
Turns out when you're the global reserve currency, you can do
Yeah,
quite a bit.
sadly.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, we'll see how that works out in the coming years, but yeah, still quite able to just tough it out and tell everyone to go jump in a lake or kick rocks or whatever.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like I think it speaks to like that argument, like that anxiety that going to Iraq to like once again relevant, right? Threatening a completely different nation for a slight against yours, a perceived slight against yours is once again something that people were worried about would bankrupt the U.S. and it didn't. It didn't. But I think it speaks to that anxiety at the time, and I don't think even though we didn't bankrupt, that I don't think any of it that's happened is good. If anything, everything else, like it's very funny because reading this is almost like it's almost bittersweet because you go, oh, we knew back then and we did nothing.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, there's also an element of, I think, hopefulness that maybe this thing will just run up against its mechanical limits. Like the machine will start to break down. And I think what we're seeing now is parts of the machine start to break down, but there is a lot of investment in the repressive parts of the machine, and they still work really fucking well.
Well, and also just run the machine faster. Go.
Right.
Mhm.
I mean, you mentioned machine, and honestly, you brought to mind. I don't know if either one of you read I had like a little essay which is called Disintegration Loops, which I used the Basinski tapes as sort of like a metaphor for exactly that, like this idea that the machine it's still running, but it's like tearing shit apart and it's
Yeah.
slowly just losing something. Yeah, it's still interesting to listen to, but it's like you can tell it's getting fucked up.
No doubt.
We're trapped in the belly of this horrible machine, and the machine is bleeding to death.
Yeah.
That machine, the Statue of Liberty. Well, that is more or less. I mean, I think that we can't convey the experience of reading this book without people reading it. I think you have to experience it for yourself. I really would recommend people wrestle with it and give it a shot. As we sort of come towards the end here, what are our kind of final thoughts on this book? Or is there anything else you want to point up from this section or any section or any high level themes that we're taking away and thinking about here?
I mean, I wanted to I don't have any high level themes. I mean, I think we've covered it, but I did want to circle back to like some of the playfulness, right? And I
Yeah,
wanted to
do it.
give an example of that, right? In the play section, there's a Segismundo says China comunista, right? The communist China, but
Yeah.
also China in Spanish means orange, right? My apple, my April, mixing memories and desires with you, I can really negotiate. Where are you from? Giannina. I was born in Naranjito. Naranja is another name for orange,
Mhm.
and Naranjito is a town known for its oranges. But I just love this. Just this is a perfect encapsulation of like just how playful she is with like both and all three languages.
Well, and the only way to stop a bad guy with a banana is a good guy with an orange, as we all
That's
know.
true. You gotta compare apples to oranges and just confuse the shit out of them.
Yeah. You can't compare bananas to anything. Famously,
It doesn't work.
I don't know where I was going with that, but that's the power of the banana. I don't know where I'm going with that either. Fucking there is a bit that I really enjoy that that highlights the not just the importance but the inevitability of finding of constructing an identity from your conditions, from the from the effort that one goes to avoid the attempts by the Imperial Corps to exterminate everything that is not it, right? I'm thinking of the Hotel El Exterminador bit. In Fajardo, they've just finished constructing the most luxurious hotel called Hotel El Exterminador. It's famous for having as its most famous guest Oliver Exterminator, who exterminates with a spray of raid everything that is related to race and sex. And if it has no relation to sex and race, it's because it hasn't come out of the closet yet, because every figure, every equation, every mathematical confabulation can be eradicated by a spray of raid on sex and race. And I couldn't help thinking of, I just started reading Transgender Marxism, and there's a bit in the intro where it talks about Marx saying that, yeah, one thing that the bourgeois state does in trying to assimilate all things into it is declare itself beyond race, right, beyond gender, while structurally perpetuating the same inequalities that undergirds it. The only thing that changes is the language, and the only thing, and which makes it all the more imperative to to assert a revolutionary form with roots in your identity, your community. I just found that really interesting parallel here. Like, there's nothing explicitly Marxist in this book, but but this is where it comes closest.
Yeah. Well, I am very thankful that the three of us, I don't know whether we're underneath the gigantic statue right now or not, but we're able to record this today. Karlo, we really appreciate you coming back to the show. Can you tell people one more time where they can find you, where they can find your work, and if you've got any last messages for the Workers Lit listeners out there?
Sure thing. I mean, you can find me at patreon.com /Podside Picnic, Podside Picnic. The podcast can be found, wherever you find podcasts. My website specifically is alineofink.com. I do have some of my work there, and you can find me just my other works that are in print. You can probably find through a Google search elsewhere. The only other message I have for our Workers Lit audience is that, now that we were thinking about sex and race and gender and whatnot, I for whatever reason, I thought it popped in my head a cursed image of an intactivist banana who does not wants to peel back.
Hell yeah. Well, Lenore, do you have anything that can close us out today?
Eat your oranges, people. They're rich in vitamin C. I don't know about bananas.
So true.
Lots of potassium.
There we go.
Bye, y'all.
Hey,